East champions. So much to talk about, so we're going to get right into it. But first, you know I got to do it, and I'm sorry, but I got to remind you, as always, we are sponsored by Picasso's Pizza. They're a top 3 pizza place in Buffalo, and let me tell you, they're not 3, and they're not 2 either. They've been serving up delicious pies in Buffalo, cup and char pepperoni for 4 generations. I can barely even count that high. They're open for takeout and delivery. I've said it before, I'll say it again. They deliver nationwide. I have no excuses not to get it here on Long Island. Do it all the time. Now is the time to support local businesses. Please do your part by supporting our good friends over at Picasso's. As always, Kevin Messeri is here. Kevin, excited for another primetime game?
Couldn't be more excited.
Hell yeah.
Absolutely.
Hell yeah. Making his
rock and roll.
Rock and roll, baby. Making his Cap debut. Guy, managing editor, lead editor. He's turned the Trainwreck Sports website around. He has been doing some amazing work. Finally time to reward him, get him some on-air time here on the Cap. It's our boy Cons. How's it going over there, buddy?
Boys, it is, I don't know about you guys, but I am exhausted with these primetime games, and I feel spoiled. Mm-hmm. And a friend of mine the other day said, I don't know what to do with the Bills being so good right now. And I couldn't agree more. It's kind of like being Italian when you're talking. I don't know what to do with my hands. So that's how I feel right now. But I'm really excited to be here, guys. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, hell yeah, man. And, it is your first time here. I'm going to give you the floor first. There's been a lot of talk on Twitter lately about if the Bills win tonight, what do they do in Week 17? Do they... And it's great when Twitter debates start because it gives us such an easy thing to talk about. So, Cons, if you were Sean McDermott, if you were Brandon Beane, if you were someone who has an impact in this decision, would you want the Bills to rest up their starters? Don't worry about the 2 seed. There's a decent chance Pittsburgh loses to Cleveland and you clinch the 2 seed through that anyways. Do you rest your guys like Josh Allen, Stephon Diggs, give John Brown that extra week to make sure he's healthy for the playoffs? Or do you take matters into your own hands and try and get it yourself?
Well, I think the thing people need to realize when discussing this is, first of all, that Steelers-Colts game couldn't have been more of a stab through my heart yesterday. I mean,
mm-hmm.
First half, Phillip Rivers looked like, 2006, 2007 Phillip Rivers just slinging it.
Mm-hmm.
The Colts were moving the ball. They were playing well defensively. And then the second half, it looked like, Big Ben took the game over. Steelers came back and won. So, it puts the Bills in a situation where they actually have something to play for in the next 2 games, technically. We can't rely on the Browns beating the Steelers. I don't think that's that's a for sure win for them. It'll definitely be a tough game for the Steelers, but, this is going to be a tough game tonight for the Bills. I think they should win, but I think you have to play this game with your starters.
Obviously.
Win convincingly. Mm-hmm. And I think next week's going to be difficult because, you want that 2 seed, but you also don't want guys like Josh Allen and Stephon Diggs getting rolled up on. Kev, I know you and I talked about this in one of our group chats. When we saw Jared Patterson go down getting rolled up on,
mm-hmm.
Ever since then, that's the only thing that I can think of that's in my mind that could happen to our star players next week, playing against the Dolphins. So I think they have to take it game by game and really see how they feel. Personally, in my opinion, I think you're in the playoffs. I wouldn't risk that. I think this is a special team that could go very deep in the playoffs, and I would just hate to see the Dolphins take advantage of that. And I don't think they would intentionally hurt Josh Allen or Stephon Diggs, but, it could happen. And I think that's where we're at right now is we're kind of just playing it game by game.
Yeah, I mean, you look through the history of this, and I'm an advocate of resting players, although there's some statistics that show teams on rest aren't very good. There are a lot. I think it's the 7 of the most 8 recent examples all lost. The one win being a Super Bowl winner. So it's something you need to go against. I personally think that rest. We saw it against the Titans that the Titans who had rested extra weeks, over the longest rest in NFL history, came out and looked fresh against the Bills earlier this year. And I think that that's something that they need to consider. And I think they started to consider it this week with potentially playing Webb, thinking about it, and going through game motions. They were doing something. There's a lot of rumblings, whether it was for a check. I don't know about that personally. I don't think that, as much as that's nice, I don't know that it would be to just give him money. I think it would be to test him out, let him go to pregame. get him ready, acclimated for potentially being the backup quarterback next week. Obviously, they don't have very much interest in Fromm, a guy I thought would be a really good storyline to play against two guys that were considered top of the draft at one point 12 months ago. So I would think that would be a fun storyline. Maybe it will be both him and Webb active, and they'll not even risk Barkley. I don't know. We'll have to see. You can only have 7 inactive, so it'll be an interesting thing. I personally believe that they should rest their team next week and hope for that the rest stat is just a fluke stat and nothing more than that. So I'm team rest. I can't see a big enough difference to give to give the Steelers the number 2. I can see that. I don't know that they win their first game anyways.
Yeah, right.
Against the 7 seed. I think they're an underdog in that game. It's probably like the Colts again. And we know that was an even Stevens game. So it'll be the Colts or the Browns. So they might play the Browns back-to-back, might play the Colts. Actually, believe it or not, if Miami wins, they clinch the 5 seed, something to know. So with a win, no matter what happens, if they beat the Bills, they're the 5 seed. They can be the 6 and 7 with a loss, actually, but they can't be a 6 and 7 with a win. So if they beat the Bills, they'll be the 5 seed. And most likely against the Titans and that, so that's a pretty interesting game. But I think that you rest your players. You don't really care about if you have to play Steelers at home or away, and you're hoping that you still have a chance to get those 3 home games. I mean, you're hoping that some tomfoolery happens beneath you.
Yeah, I mean, I'm kind of in a mix, like a hybrid spot of it. Like, I would love to, maybe not give Josh and Stephon Diggs and all them like a full week of rest, but get them out for like the first quarter, just get their legs warm. You keep them, playing for 2 weeks in a row, at least a little bit, because, like we've talked about already, we don't know if rest actually really helps people or not. Like, there's just conflicting evidence on both sides. So, if we can start off with Josh Allen in for the first quarter, play Zach Moss and Devin Singletary through the entire thing. If one of them gets hurt, it's not like our run game's going to get, going to get much weaker. And, maybe we could see it continue tonight. Granted, it was against a hapless Broncos team who were just demoralized last week, but we did see Devin Singletary turn it up. Zach Moss looks all right closing out the game too. And, maybe between this week and next week could be a good chance to keep it rolling, get the run game going into the playoffs, because it's not like we need to rely on the run game. We've proven throughout the entire season that we don't have to. But if they can get some momentum going, I think that's who if there's anybody I'm going to be watching next week, that's who I'd be watching for to play, is the run game there. Maybe get Dane Jackson and Cam Lewis some reps, because, they've looked good in their minimal amount of play so far. But, it's not like we're going to be calling on them a lot. But, I'm kind of in a hybrid, like I said. But we talked about the Pittsburgh and the Indianapolis game. We'll kind of transition into talking about some of the action from this weekend that impacts at least who the Bills might play. There's so much parity. There's so many different ways that this could shake out. I think I saw there are 40 different possibilities or something like that in how these games can go next week and how the teams can fall because of that. We'll start with the Steelers-Colts game. Did we learn more about the Steelers or the Colts? Because the Colts had such a giant lead. So did we learn that the Colts are, frauds, or that the Steelers are really, capable of coming back from deficits and they're a dangerous team to look out for? Or was this just a weird game where we probably didn't learn too much about either side?
I think you got a mix between that. I think it's a little bit of both. I think the Steelers are better than they've played. I think that's fair to say. They're better than the last couple of weeks. They showed it for a quarter and a half, 2 quarters. And the Colts aren't really that good. Like, they play good defense. We'll see if that hangs. They kind of remind me. Them and the Browns kind of remind me of last year's Bills team, where they both have some good defense. They both have moments on offense. Both have a good running game. Can they throw the ball effectively enough? I don't know. I'm not going to sit here and say that Jarvis Landry was the reason that the Browns struggled. I mean, I'm not talking about that game. But I'm not. I don't take too much from either of them.
Cons, anything to take from them or no?
I'll tell you, it's been the story of Ben Roethlisberger's career. It's like boom or bust in the sense of like, and he was my fantasy quarterback one year. Not to bring fantasy football into it, but you would draft Big Ben in your league thinking you were going to get a 300-400 yard game because he'd sling it all over the field. But then you'd see games where he'd throw 4 interceptions. So I think the Steelers are kind of like a ride or die with Ben Roethlisberger the way he plays. And that second half, I read an article today saying that he basically called his own game the second half. I'm not saying that he's like the greatest quarterback to ever play the game, but it lit a fire under the Steelers' offense. And like Kevin said, it's a mixture of things. But I think that they're a boom or bust team. Like I think there's games they could look really good, and there's games they could look like they've never played football before. With that being said, I still think the Colts are a strong football team. I think their defense is pretty solid. In the second half, they faltered a little bit. Looked like Phillip Rivers was a little out of sync with Pascal at the end of the game there. The route looked a little flat in a sense. It looked like Rivers was trying to get him to lead him a little bit more. But, I'm not ready to write the Colts off just yet. I'm also not ready to crown the Steelers. So I think it was a fluke game. I would want to see the Steelers dominate next week for me to start thinking that they're actually like a contender in the playoffs.
Yeah, I could see that. I don't really see the Steelers winning another game for the rest of the season. Every time I say that, I say sorry, Dad, because he's a huge Steelers fan. Sorry to my brother Drew as well. Sorry, guys. Kevin already said we can't really take too much away from the Browns and the Jets because, like, when any team loses an entire position group, especially where there's skill positions like wide receivers, like, what are you going to do? Like, if the Browns won that game, I might be able to say some crazy things about Baker Mayfield, and I'm really happy we're not there. This is a Titans hating podcast, and we'll do this quickly because, we obviously have, of course, other things to talk about. But last night against the Packers, we've been saying for a couple weeks now, and guests on the show like Mark Schofield this past week said it, there's the Chiefs and the Bills at the top of the league, which is weird for me to say that with a straight face and not smiling. But, there's Chiefs and the Bills at the top of the league. The Packers, you could say they're up there in that upper echelon too. Maybe their defense is a little weaker. But if anything, last night just showed me how far off the Texans really are. That's the kind of game where they're playing a team that has a run defense that's, that has it's a leaky bucket, really. And in 30-degree, 20-degree weather, colder than that, where it's snowing, that's a game where they're supposed to be able to run Derrick Henry down their throats. And, they couldn't. And when Derrick Henry's not going, the rest of the offense isn't working either. You can't rely on Ryan Tannehill to carry it. So, I know we abnormally hate the Titans here on the Cap, so we'll start with cons to get some voice of reason in here, maybe. Are you less worried about facing the Titans in the playoffs after last night's debacle?
I think my thing with the Titans is that I think they're a solid team, but I think that it's almost like people forget about them. But I've never thought of, and I shouldn't say this because the AFC East has been up and down for as long as I can remember.
Yeah.
I just think of the AFC South as just such a weak division, in my opinion. And that's not to say that Deshaun Watson's a terrible quarterback or that the Jaguars don't have some solid games or the Colts are bad. I just look at that division as very weak. So, you look at those games, throughout the year. I mean, Tennessee goes out of the division. They might lose a game to a big name team, but they come back in the division. They'll beat up on Jackson. They'll beat up on Houston. So the jury's still out on them for me. I think Tannehill's a solid starting quarterback. I think their defense is pretty good. I think A.J. Brown is playing out of his freaking mind this year. I mean, wow, like what a big body guy.
Great guy.
Just runs great routes, fleet-footed. But, say what you want about that Bills game. There was short rest. There was a lot going on. There was 2 games they were preparing for. We can make up all the excuses we want. The Bills didn't show up in prime time. I think if you give the Bills like another chance against a team like Tennessee, I think it's a little bit closer. They might even dominate that game. We don't know. Hopefully we don't have to see that in the first round. I'm hoping maybe we don't, but the jury's still out on Tennessee for me, and I think that has a lot to do with the division there.
And then the last team that we could possibly play, Kevin, I'm sorry, did you want to say something about the Titans or no?
No, we'll go with that. That's a good synopsis of them. I talk about them too much.
Yeah, I figured you were sick of it. That's the only reason I started.
Sick of them. They suck. They looked like shit. I said yesterday that they didn't look like they could play in the snow. Then I'm going to stick by that. They need this ground and pound team that apparently couldn't do that. Whatever.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. Couldn't have said it better myself right there between you two. Last team that the Bills could possibly face that we haven't talked about. Well, actually 2 more, sorry. Ravens and the Giants. Ravens beat them pretty handily, 27-13. Giants have looked like a decent football team lately. But Daniel Jones is Daniel Jones. I'm not going to take anything from the Ravens defense away. But the Giants defense has looked decent lately. So Now, as someone, myself, I have been pretty vocal that I am not afraid of Lamar Jackson in the playoffs. What we did to him last year, he had his worst year of an MVP season against the Bills. We lost it was pretty sure like it was just like a 4th and 10, and the throw was just a little off for John Brown, and it was really good coverage. Whatever. That was last year. I think that we can hold Lamar in check again this year, but him he had a relatively good game against the Giants does make me worry a little bit about facing him if he's getting it going now. We've said it a lot throughout the course of the season. The teams that get it going late and get healthy late are the teams that we have to worry about. So, Kevin, we'll go to you this time. Do you think the Ravens are one of those teams we have to worry about getting in it at the right time?
Yeah, you do. Mm-hmm. I mean, I'm not as worried as other teams are, or people are about the Ravens.
Yeah.
But I do think you need to worry about them probably being the best team, not in the top 3. I mean, and that's considering the Steelers in the top 3, which I don't know. I guess they beat the Colts. I guess they're right there. Took care of the Browns twice. Mm-hmm. Will potentially take care of them twice. We'll see if they even play their players. Yes, I think they're the 4th best team. So you would hate to play 2v4, 3v4 in the second round, the first round. But I guess it's par for the course. You're hoping that they do look likely to get the 6th seed. That is the most likely scenario for Baltimore based on my permutations. Mm-hmm. So that means 2, you should be safe. I already talked about if you do double lose for some reason against the Patriots and the Dolphins, you are in the 4 most likely. You do seem to have a game against the Dolphins, mm-hmm. which is the way that would go with a double loss. With a 1-1, you do open your door up to that if the Steelers do win. That's really the only scenario that gets you to Baltimore in the 3 or 6 game. Once again, that's probably the 2nd and 4th best teams. I don't know why they struggled against Pittsburgh. They seem to struggle against defensive teams, but they can get it going. They can get it going against really poor offenses. So we'll see what happens. They really do shut out bad offenses, and that's what we've seen from the Ravens. Though they struggle themselves against good defenses. Did the Bills qualify as a good defense? We'll have to wait and see.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm not as worried about the Ravens, though. I do think it's the least team I want to play in the first round. After you win your first game, all the top 4 are.
Yeah.
Like if you play them next round in the top 4, it is what it is. Mm-hmm. You're going to play them, the Titans, most likely. Them, the Titans. If the Browns can pull an upset, that's who you're most likely looking at, anyways. So that game's going to be hard. But yeah, you'd like to avoid them in the first round. But how much better are they than the Colts? I don't know. Honestly, not much.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, their defense is not as good as the Colts. It's still a solid defense. Patrick Queen has been a really good rookie linebacker for him this year. Cons, anything to add on the Ravens here?
Yeah, this is the one team that sticks out to me more than the Colts, and it's because if you look at that opening drive against the Giants defense, it was 82 yards in 13 plays. There's a 6-yard touchdown pass to Marquise Hollywood Brown, and I think that Lamar Jackson and that connection, it's like a home run. You don't want to get beat deep, but you might get beat deep by this team. But, I mean, they completely steamrolled the Giants' defense on that opening drive. And then you got to keep in mind, too, I mean, like you said, we know it's the Giants. Their defense has been playing well. But you had J.K. Dobbins, who, his 7th touchdown, he broke Jamal Lewis's record, for a Ravens rookie. Mm-hmm. The Giants never got within single digits. And it's one of those teams that would be that fluke loss in the first round if they were to draw. It's not that I don't have confidence in the Bills.
Yeah.
It's the fact that the Ravens are they're well coached. John Harbaugh's a great coach. I like Harbaugh. I think he's a great coach, and I think this team is well coached in that aspect. But that opening drive told me a lot about that offense, and Lamar Jackson's such a weird quarterback, man. Like he'll have one game where he looks like a perennial all-star, and then he'll throw for 83 yards and run for whatever, but just not a guy when the level of play gets to a certain level that I want to face in the first round of the playoffs. Like Kevin said, I mean, just want to stay away from them the first round and just get to that second tier of the playoffs.
Yeah, it's not easy to win a Super Bowl. No one ever said it was. Tua did say that the NFL was easier than he thought it would be, and look how that's gotten for him so far. That's a good way to go to the Dolphins. The last of the teams here we're really worried about, and then we'll get into the game for tonight. But I should have looked this up because I just thought of it now, and it would have been a great idea. Like the records for Tua Dolphins games and Fitz Dolphins games, because the game against the Raiders, Tua lost that game, but Fitz won it. Like I'm not really worried about the Dolphins, especially if Tua is there. He just seems like a left-handed Tyrod Taylor to me right now. Am I blind or something? Because like that team seems a lot like the Tyrod Bills that made the playoffs to me.
Yeah, I mean, you're not wrong by assuming that. I've said that they stink. I think they have some really good luck. Their DVOA is interesting. They are the best scoring defense, which doesn't make sense because they're like 20th in total defense by yards. So it depends. Some people will say, I don't care about yards, I don't care about points. You can care about one or the other or both. It's playing, it's a defense that's playing well, opportunistic. I mean, they're taking punts every game. I mean, they're stealing possession. That's a turnover. So what people don't realize, just like a punt is a calculated turnover, so is a fake punt. So when you convert it, that was the ball you were supposed to have on your own 30 or 40 or 25. You had the punt, and you didn't have it because you weren't paying attention. So the Dolphins are capitalizing on all of those situations. They just don't win good, though. I mean, they couldn't move the ball at all. Derek Carr's like half a leg. They should have lost. I mean, it took a backup quarterback coming in, getting his face turned around in a chuck ball against a bad. Don't forget how bad their defense is and how bad Tua looked against a bad defense. I mean, that's not a good defense. That's how you're playing, the Colts. That's a bad defense, and they fired the defensive coordinator. I'm not worried about the Dolphins. You're right; they're very similar to some of those 2017 Bills teams. I'm not even going to give them the 2019 Bills team. They're very similar to the 2017 Bills team.
Yeah, exactly.
I'll give the nod to like the Browns as like the 2019 Bills looking team.
Yeah.
The 2017 Bills are the Dolphins, and that team's just not very good. Just straight up, it's not very good. They can't move the ball. They can't. They need to be playing Ryan Fitzpatrick.
Cons, you feel the same way?
I wouldn't say so much, and with all due respect to how much I love Ryan Fitzpatrick and just the way he speaks about Buffalo and talks about it.
Sure.
I think John Gruden handed that game to the Dolphins in a sense, and I sat there and I was watching the game with my dad. We're like, I understand he was trying to run the clock out, but there's 6 points in front of you to put you up, where it's not a field goal game. We were just sitting there like dumbfounded. We understood what Gruden was trying to do, but it was like he gift wrapped it in a sense. Now that play where Fitzpatrick makes the no look face mask. I mean, how often is that? Very come on,
genuine
really?
Fitzmagic, actual
right.
Fitzmagic.
It would only happen if he was in the game. But yeah, I agree with Kevin. I think the defense at times can bring pressure on the quarterback, but I'm not too worried about them as much as I was maybe 2 weeks ago. And fun fact, you guys were asking about Tua's stats per Pro Football Focus. They said that the Dolphins are 7-2 in games Tua has started since the team's Week 7 bye, but he hasn't so much led the team to victory as he has not given games away. Yes, he's in that middle where he's just a game manager at this point. And why would you spend a pick on him, the number 5 pick in the NFL draft, if that's how you're going to roll him out there? So one other thing I wanted to say, too, as a former high school baseball coach, I've never coached football, but I can tell you that pulling your rookie quarterback in the middle of a game, could you imagine pulling Josh Allen every time he struggled?
Yeah.
Could you imagine where he would have grown as a player? I'm not saying Brian Flores is an awful coach by any means, but the way he's handled his quarterback situation in Miami is just
it's
atrocious.
dumbfounding. Yeah.
Like I feel for Tua. Like I actually genuinely think Tua is a great athlete. I think he's a great player. I just think that this has been so poorly managed that it just makes them look incompetent from the outside.
Yeah, you can't expect him to come in year one and be, the perfect quarterback and lead them to the playoffs and everything. Right. But you got to give him every chance and every tool to do that. And that's just not something Brian Flores has done. I've been very, very vocal about how much I actually think he's a great coach. But if this is his Achilles heel, it's a really bad one to have. But that's all we got on these other teams in that AFC playoff race. Won't spend too much more on it because, like I've said, got a pretty important game tonight. This is the chance for the Bills to go 2-0 against the New England Patriots. I don't know the last time that happened. I should have also looked that up. I should have better idea. 1989?
1999.
99. Yikes. Okay, well, I was 3, so I'm older now, which is clear. So we'll start talking about this, Cons. Gave you the floor for the first part. Do it this time, too. What is your key for a Bills win?
So I think the key matchup right now, a lot of people are looking at Stephon Gilmore being out this game. It's the second time this season. The Bills won't face Gilmore, but don't be fooled by J.C. Jackson. I mean, this guy's a Pro Bowl snub. You know, I mean, you look at some of this guy's stats, man. He was left off. He's a third-year quarterback. He's second in the NFL with 8 interceptions. And last time that they squared off, Diggs and J.C. Jackson squared off, he held Diggs 6 catches for 92 yards. And he caught that Allen ball that we won't even talk about. It was a miscommunication on their part. But I think the key to this game is, having a complete game offensively. And I understand this team relies on Josh Allen's arm a lot, but I'd like to see Josh Allen, get some quick hits early on, but I really want to see Singletary and Moss take this running game to the next level because I think good teams in the playoffs can run the ball effectively. I'm not saying they have to run for 100 yards, 200 yards, but effectively enough that when the ball's in your hands, Zach Moss, on third down, you get the first down. Or Devin Singletary, when you get open in space, take it to the house. And he did take it to the house last weekend against Denver, but I think the defense is coming around at the right time. We just need that running game to get to that next level, and I think it's just going to make the passing game that much more open for Josh Allen to really excel and get to that next level because, in my opinion, there's one really elite quarterback in the AFC. Josh Allen's right there, and then the rest of the quarterbacks fall below. And that's Mahomes, and Allen's right there in his teams. So I think the running game is going to help open that up for Josh Allen. We just got to get there.
Yeah, that's basically what I said my key to the game was when we were talking about it with Mark Schofield on Saturday. But I will say one thing on that matter, maybe that isn't my key to the game, just because of how confident I am in this coaching staff and in this team and the mindset and the culture and all those words that we're sick of hearing by now. But I'm happy I don't have to worry about them taking this game for granted. I really am. Like when a young team, like maybe like last year's team, I might have worried about that a little bit. But we've seen so much growth from Josh Allen. Stephon Diggs brings that leadership voice, saying, talk to me 17 in the huddle. It's I don't worry about them taking this game for granted. I don't worry about them just thinking it's an automatic win. So that is a key to the game, but it's not even like that's something we have to worry about. The run game, that's something we've had to worry about all year, and that is kind of where my key to the game is stopping it and getting it going. Just keeping, winning the game in the trenches. Some of the things that, like I said, we're sick of hearing by now, so I'll stop talking about them. Kevin, keys to the game for you?
I mean, I think I wanted them to do what they do best. I'm sick of the Bills doing what other teams are good at.
Yeah.
And, I was a little frustrated by the let's stop Patrick Mahomes type of defense, but at the same time, it's Patrick Mahomes, the league MVP. That's fine. I'll allow it in that situation. I want you to go and say, you need to be able to run the ball effectively. We saw the Titans struggle at it, and that's their strength last night in the snow. However, I think you need to run it effectively, but that doesn't mean every single play.
Yeah.
I think you need to prove that we have an MVP type of quarterback like Mahomes. I want you to play against our offensive strengths. I don't want to change anything because you have a Bill Belichick and a decent defense without Stephon Gilmore. I'm going to make you do the Patrick Mahomes defense where you're going to drop back and you're going to play zones and you're going to play different style of cover robbers, different things to confuse Allen. That's what they need to do. I think the Bills need to prove they can throw against that, though. That's the one thing Vrabel was able to put on film. I'd like this game to be a game of running. I'd like them to run the ball effectively. But at the same time, I want to prove that, fine, it's like the 49ers tried to do with Robert Sly. You try to drop back in those zones, we're going to have the most yards against zone on the season. So that's what I want to see, and I need to see the Bills be able to do it against Bill Belichick. And I want to see them exercise those demons, like I said on Air in Toronto yesterday. I'm not satisfied with a punch out by Justin Zimmer on second down, and you won in the 15. I call the Dolphins wins flukes a lot of the times. That is the Bills' probably luckiest win.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
That's nowhere close to getting luck chucked.
No.
But it is luckier because that game could have ended in a tie, overtime very easily. And at worst case, Cam Newton runs that ball in the end zone on third down or getting that first down on a couple plays later. So I would like to beat the Patriots, not on a fumble inside the 20. I know the weather was weird. Belichick had a good defensive game plan. I want to go out there and say, all right, we kind of exercise a little bit of that problem we had with Vrabel and his deep zones that he was playing. I'm going to show you that we can take care of it like we did against San Francisco, and that you do what you do best. I want to see some running this game because they struggle at it so poorly, and they allow how many yards in the last 2 weeks? 400 or something crazy over the last 2 weeks.
It was Sorry, Kevin, I didn't mean to interrupt you. It was
No,
250
no.
against the Dolphins and then 186 against the Rams.
That's ridiculous.
Yeah.
That's ridiculous. So you need to capitalize on that, but at the same time, I still want to show that, yeah, we can run the ball if we want. We'll go to the run, but I'm still going to throw it all over you, too.
Yeah, if we came out throwing and did it well against this team, that would be one hell of a statement before the playoffs start in just a couple weeks. We'll move into cap or no cap. Got a lot of things going for record books between Josh Allen and Stephon Diggs, between franchise records, and even Stephon Diggs. Something if he does tonight, he will only join Calvin Johnson as the only wide receiver ever to do. Sal Capaccio tweeted this earlier. Stephon Diggs has 3 straight games of 10 or more catches. He's one of only 8 players to ever do that in NFL history. If he does it again tonight, he and Calvin Johnson would be the only players to do it in 4 straight games. So, the way this works, cap or no cap, if you think it will happen, you call no cap. If you think it will not happen, you call cap on it, because it's bullshit. There we go. Easy peasy. So, Cons, over to you. Do you think Stephon Diggs will join Calvin Johnson as the only receivers in NFL history with 10 catches in 4 straight games?
No cap.
No cap.
And I'll tell you why. No cap.
Okay, thank you.
No, I've done it before. I'm just like, no cap. No. I think what's crazy about Stephon Diggs and Josh Allen, and when I talk to people about the Bills, outside of Buffalo, is that Josh Allen is out to prove everybody wrong, beat up that narrative that's not true about him, and he's done a pretty darn good job doing that. Stephon Diggs is out to prove that he's a perennial number one NFL wide receiver. He's done that. He's doing that. And I think what's crazy about them is the reason they get along so well is they're out to prove the world wrong. And I think that this matchup with J.C. Jackson tonight, I think Stephon Diggs is chomping at the bit to get those 10 receptions. So that's why I'm saying no cap. Also, fun fact, Stephon Diggs is 63 yards shy of becoming the 35th player in NFL history with 6,000-plus yards within the first 6 years of his career. I mean, it's a milestone night here for Buffalo, and I don't see him being less than 5. He's got to get 10. So no cap.
Kevin?
It's
tough, I know.
We just talked about the game plan being a mix of everything. I'm going 7 and 8. I'm going cap, but not by much. I'm betting 6 to 8 catches, and I do think he'll be the second leading receiver in the league after today. And I mean, I'm going 7 catches, 85 yards, and a touchdown. And I think that, he's not going to get that clean double digits, but it's going to be due to game flow, I think.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's kind of where I am too. Like, we may not need him to do that to win this game. Especially if the running game is as effective as it was the first time. That was the lowest passing output for Josh Allen, just in terms of attempts on the year, I believe, that first New England game. So, yeah, I would also call cap on it. But he does only need, I believe, 58 yards to have the most yards in a single season. For a Bills receiver, I think that is much more achievable. Jesus, that was bad. Much more achievable. And I think that's something we will see tonight. But on another note, Josh Allen, and this kind of goes hand in hand with Stephon Diggs, so we won't spend as much time on it. I think it'll be easier to call cap on it. Needs 4 touchdowns to have the most touchdowns passing in Bills history in a season. Needs 360 yards to have the most yards in a Bills season after today. I don't think it'll happen today, but cap or no cap happens by the end of the season. Because that's tough. Because what if he only plays a quarter? What if he plays 2?
I gotta go no cap.
Yeah.
Or excuse me, I gotta go cap on that.
Yeah.
I don't think he plays next week and he doesn't get it done. I think he maybe goes 2 touchdown throwing, and I'm probably at the upper 2s. So I don't. You know me at the beginning of the show. I don't think he plays.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna have to go cap, but not by much.
Yeah. And to be clear, it's not a bad thing if Josh Allen doesn't break every Jim Kelly record in 1 year. By the way, in case people needed to hear that. Cons, cap or no cap?
Well, here's the crazy thing. I'm going to say cap, but here's another thing, too. I mean, he needs just 360 passing yards to set a new team record.
Yeah.
If he does that in the next 2 games, he'll surpass Drew Bledsoe's record of 4,359 yards. And I think that all comes down to what's more important, getting deep in the playoffs or breaking these records. So, I mean, if he does it effortlessly tonight, well, more power to him. Okay? Whatever.
Yeah.
But I just don't think that these milestones are as important as going deep into the postseason and keeping your eyes on the prize. We know what Allen's about. He said it in his locker room speech. They're not done. Cap it for me.
Yeah, I'm kind of right there with you guys. Like I said, it's not a bad thing if he doesn't do it. We don't really have to worry about that. I promise you guys. If Josh Allen takes a couple years to hit 5,000 yards passing or something like that, it'll be a great thing because that means he'll still be our quarterback in a couple years, which is everything that the Bills and fans have wanted for such a long time now. The over-under tonight is kind of an intriguing one. It's at 47 right now. I really do think it'll hit the over this time. First matchup, it hit the under. Cons, cap or no cap, the over of 47 will be hit.
No cap.
Yeah.
No cap. I just think that this would be the game the Bills would put a complete game together and blow out the Patriots. I think there's a lot with this game. The Bills have been bullied for so many years by the Patriots. They need to make a statement in Foxborough. This would be the game to do it. Give me the over.
Cons?
Agreed. No cap here.
Mm-hmm.
Nothing else to add to that.
Yeah, and I'm right there with you guys. So now we'll go into some more player props. Cam Newton has an over-under of 41.5 rushing yards tonight. I would call, if we're going, cap or no cap, if he hits the over, I think I'm going to say no cap. I don't think he was involved enough in the run game last time. I feel like they might try to force it at this point. I'm not sure how smart that is. But, Cam Newton in the national spotlight, he's going to do his damnedest to make sure that he and the Patriots don't get embarrassed. He's been embarrassed a lot this year already. I feel like he'll be over that total, but it might not be efficient running. And that's what I'm hoping for is the Bills just holding him to a low yards per carry. It could be a large output. But if he has 50 yards on 12 attempts, I'm not going to be upset about that from a defensive standpoint for the Bills. Kevin, over-under is 41.5. Cap or no cap?
Over, I think he runs a lot. Pretty simply, I think he's not going to a lot of passing lanes. I probably do have him in the 50 to 55 rushing yards. Sounds about right.
Yeah. Cons?
Yeah, I have to no cap it just because I think he's very capable. He's just more than capable of doing that. And, there's really not much more to say. Cam Newton can run. Pretty much it.
Last one. If you ever want to bet on a Bills running backs rushing total, you really have some other things you might want to have checked out there. Zach Moss, 45.5. That's really high for him, but he did have 80 yards against the Patriots in the last meeting. He had 81 and 2 touchdowns on, I think, 15 carries. It was a relatively really, really good game from him. I have him in my flex for my fantasy championship tonight. I am up 32, so go Bills. But Zach Moss, over-under 45 rushing yards. Cons, we'll start with you this time.
I'm going to no cap it. I think that they can. I think he can. I think he can rush over.
Mm-hmm.
You have to keep in mind too that the last time I played, Singletary was 14 of 86. Moss was 14 of 81 with 2 touchdowns. So I don't think that it's difficult for him. I'll no cap that.
Mm-hmm. Kevin, this is the last one here. What do you think?
Yeah, I don't think he does.
Really?
I think Singletary day. I can't predict him to go over it. Mm-hmm. I think that they'll do all types of mixture, like set a balanced offense. I think once again it'll be around the 30s in this one.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I do think he'll hit the over, but honestly, I would not be shocked if he doesn't. There's no, and it's not a slight to Zach Moss either. He was kind of like Josh Allen, a raw, physically gifted running back coming out of college. He does need a little more time to develop, and we've seen them do that with Josh Allen. We've seen them try to do it with Dawson Knox. It's not a shock that maybe he's not performing as well as he could have in his first year. So I don't think it's a cause for concern. Overall, the Bills' draft has turned out really good this year, and I have more than enough faith to give Zach Moss a little extra time here. But we don't have a lot of extra time. Kickoff is in about 25 minutes, so we want to give you guys some time to get to your couches, relax, get that Picasso's pizza, tip the delivery guy generously. We'll get into score predictions, and we'll close out the show. Cons, what do you see happening tonight? Describe the game. Give us a final score.
So a wise man named Andrew Baines Bernard once said, "It is on like Genghis Khan wearing Sean John and Bhutan." For over a decade, the Patriots have just dominated, and this is the first time we can go to this game and finally say we have the team to do this. Let's put our foot on the gas. Let's cruise to a victory. Let's get this sweep for the first time since 1999. It's the Bills turn away the SmackDown. if you smell what Josh Allen and company is cooking, I got the Bills 40, Patriots 10. I just see no reason why Josh Allen in this offense it stopped. It would shock me if this Bills offense was stopped. So I think they're one of the hottest teams in the NFL right now. Bills 40, Patriots 10.
Wow.
I'm going to stick with my normal Mark Schofield edition, 28-14.
Mm-hmm.
It's about what I'm thinking. I do think they'll be able to slow us down a little bit at times, and make it a little bit ugly. But I wouldn't be shocked by 40-10, honestly. I can say that I wouldn't be. I just think that there might be a little room for margin with maybe some special teams blunders, or the Patriots play, conservative to try to limit the amount that Josh Allen can hurt you, limit the score a little bit. But I got 28-14, and that's where I'll be rolling. I think I'll stick with that prediction, and I'm going to ride it through.
Yeah, my prediction yesterday was 27-14. I'm very, very close to yours, and it was very close to Mark's as well. We had the same 3 numbers in all of our predictions, which was fun. But I have kind of, I won't say softened up on that, but I feel like I'm seeing more scoring as I've thought about the game more. And so just as a result, I think it's going to be 33-14, not 27. So add another touchdown. Add 2 more touchdowns. Yeah, 2 more Tyler Bass field goals. Love to get him hot going into the playoffs. He's someone who, people were on early in the season about, how he was missing kicks. And, we got to give kickers time to develop too, guys. Like, that's not a joke. Like, we actually do. It's hard to make kicks in the NFL. I will be training my children to be professional kickers. So, watch out for, the Watkins babies in 30 years. They're not born yet. So we'll kick off the show, or close the show. Cons, give us some words of wisdom for Bills Mafia coming into this Monday night game. You've had a lot of good stuff to say. It's been a pleasure having you.
Yeah, guys, thanks for having me. It's been a pleasure. I know sometimes a lot of my comments can be outlandish, but I'm just a guy that loves sports.
Thanks for showing up.
Yeah,
no problem. I would say this. This is my final words here for Bills Mafia. It is in Sal. I'm not stealing what Sal Capaccio said, but. Have fun. Enjoy the moment. Stop worrying about the future. This is the first time we have a great football team that we can be proud of, a football team that's embedded in the Buffalo DNA. We've said it from the get-go. I can remember talking about this every single show that I've listened to over the last 5-6 years. What would we do if? We're here now. Let's not look at the what-ifs anymore. Bask in the moment. Bask in the glory. Be proud to be a Buffalo Bills fan. And let's just get this dub. Big dubs today. I just want to see a convincing win so we can go to bed happy, wake up Tuesday morning. And let me just say, Bills Mafia on Twitter is incredible when the Bills are winning. Everybody's so kind to each other. And, just so thankful to be a part of this fan base and what we're doing, guys. But enjoy it. Let's stop looking too far ahead.
It's a great way to wrap it up.
Amazing. Yeah, really. Thank you, Cons. We'd love to have you on again in the future. Let's not think about the future now. We'll think about tonight. Bills Patriots, 8:15. Make sure that you get that Picasso's, and make sure that you're on your couches ready for kickoff. Go